game ended. The game ended. Right now it's 1 a.m. and the game probably ended. I don't know how long ago. Hour and a half ago, somewhere around there. We're calling it like 11:30. I think right around 11:30 the game ended. So about 90 minutes ago. And for the last 90 minutes, I've sat around thinking, all right, what are you going to say? What's going to be your big open here? How are you going to jump into this thing and really hit them, come out strong? And I always go back and forth on whether I should even come out strong because not everybody's online right at the minute that the live stream starts. And if I come out with my hottest take, my strongest opinion, and come firing out, both guns blazing, a lot of people are going to miss it, and you don't want to use all your good material and nobody's going to see it. You don't want everybody to miss the good material. But even then, I don't know what the good material is. Because all I could think for the last 90 minutes is, what do you even say about this? What do you say about this game? It's predictable. I would say it was predictable. I would say we saw this coming. I saw this coming. I mean, and I don't say that to say, I knew this was going to happen. But are you shocked in the least? Forget about the details of how it happened and the ins and outs and this player, that call, or this official, or that injury, whatever. Set all that stuff aside. If I told you yesterday, if I told you 5 hours ago, 7 hours ago, hey, Carolina's going to win tonight 41-24. You probably would have been like, Pitt's going to score 24? I don't think this outcome is surprising in the least. It's exactly what we probably expected and should have expected based on everything we've seen from Pitt so far this season, based on what we've seen from Carolina so far this season, and based on what we know about Pitt just over the course of the last 8+ years. 8 1/3 seasons. This game was as predictable as they come. And this game is what Pitt is this season. And I said, I talked about this it might have been on the post-game show after the West Virginia game. And I might have referenced it at some point during the week, just sort of had this flash of an idea of, if you're Pitt, and most teams, really, but if you're Pitt, the defense has to be good enough to keep the game in range for the offense. Period. And in college football, that's what needs to happen. And maybe you could extend this even to the NFL, but particularly in college, okay, where college is wild. College has a lot of scoring. College has a lot of points. Your defense has to be good enough to keep the game in range for the offense. That's what you have to be able to do. Pitt's defense right now is not good enough to keep a game in range against a quality offensive opponent. They're not, because their offense, Pitt's offense, is not good enough to score enough to beat a team like North Carolina. And they only give up 373 yards. Oh, they only give up 3 touchdowns or 4 touchdowns or whatever it was. Mac Brown said almost, explicitly, he used the word handcuff. They handcuffed their offense in the second half because they knew Pitt was not coming back. They knew Pitt was not good enough to come back. I am convinced that if at any moment the game is even slightly threatened, if Pitt was even slightly threatening in the second half, Drake May could have gone off and finished with 450 yards. If they score a touchdown after the blocked punt, when they get the ball at the 20, if they go down and they score a touchdown, I don't even know what have made the score at that point. It doesn't matter. I have no doubt that Drake May would have marched right down the field and scored. They were never stopping Drake May tonight. Anytime he wanted to get in scoring range and probably a touchdown, he was going to do it. He's that good. And that's not, and he's going to do that against a lot of teams. And we've seen over the past that this defense is susceptible to really good quarterback play. And Drake May is a really good quarterback. And when this defense runs into a quarterback like that, this is what happens. You have to be able to hold the game in range for your offense. Your offense has to be able to score with a guy like this or with an offense like that. And this offense can't do it. This offense can't do it. And we'll spend a lot of time. We got a whole hour here that we're going to talk about this. And we're going to talk about Phil Dracovic and Christian Vare. We're going to talk about the drive at the end of the first half. We're going to talk about this penalty and that penalty and which players should be getting the ball and which players should not be getting the ball and what needs to happen on defense and all of these things. But it comes down to a very simple point. Their offense is not good enough right now. No, scratch that. Their offense is bad. And their defense is not good enough to hold a good offensive opponent in range. And they go to Blacksburg next week, they should be all right. And they play Boston College later, they should be all right. Even maybe Wake Forest. Wake Forest is looking weird. They don't really seem to know who they are. They can't really figure out their identity. They probably should be a run-heavy team. They've got a really good running back. They entered, Damon Claiborne or whatever his name is, entered this week the fourth leading rusher in the ACC. They only gave him the ball 11 times last week and only like 13 times this week, while their quarterback threw 3 interceptions. And they lost to Georgia Tech by like 2 touchdowns. So Wake Forest is a weird one. Maybe that's one. But like Louisville's offense, Syracuse's offense, Notre Dame, Florida State, Duke, I don't know right now if their defense is good enough to keep those games in range for Pitt, for the offense to actually win it. I don't know. Now, I say right now, and I emphasize right now because I think that defense is young, and I think that defense is going to get better. And to some extent, this is some of what we sort of predicted. You could go back to podcasts that I did throughout the summer talking about, I just don't know. There's going to be a learning curve on defense, and I just don't know if the offense is going to be good enough to score and make up for it when the defense gives up some plays. They clearly have not been so far through the month of September. Even though they had arguably their best defensive or best offensive game of the month. I know they scored 3 touchdowns against Cincinnati. They only got 2 today. They put up their most yards. I think when they looked good today, they looked better than they did at any point against Cincinnati. That first drive was maybe their best drive of the game. And quite frankly, that first drive was what they should be doing. 13 plays, taking 7-8 minutes off the clock, 78 yards, marching down the field, lots of run, lots of short, quick passes, high percentage stuff. That's what they should be. All right, give up on the idea of your hero quarterback because you don't have one. Get to your bread and butter because that's your only chance. When they did their best job of the whole game against Drake May, it's when they kept him on the sidelines, running the ball and eating up a ton of clock, and that clock keeps rolling, and you just churn time away. That was like the best we've seen this offense, and quite frankly, that's what this offense should be. They keep trying to get away from it and doing different things and thinking there's something that they're not because they're still sort of convinced that they're a good offensive team, or they seem to conduct themselves as if they are a good offensive team, but they're not. They're not a good offensive team. We know they're not a good offensive team. They have major issues at quarterback. They have major issues in pass protection. They seemingly choose not to give the ball to their best players on a consistent enough basis, although hallelujah to the usage and the workload for Rodney Hammond. It got him hurt, but at least he was the primary feature back. I mean, like almost every play. It was a long time before another running back stepped foot on the field on offense and took snaps at tailback. It was a long time before that finally happened. So kudos to that. Not kudos for taking Gavin Bartholomew off the field as often as they did. Not kudos for not continuing to pepper Konate Mumfield with targets. I think there's a lot of places we can go in this post-game conversation. There's a lot of things we can get into and a lot of things we can talk about. Let me check the comments here and see what we got. People are definitely floating in and commenting on this game. Remember, so last week after the West Virginia game, we had so many comments that we ended up, over the course of an hour, all we were really able to do was get to the super chatters, and that was just because they filled it up, and you guys were awesome in that way. If you want to make sure your comment gets read or your question gets answered, be a super chatter. You click the little $sign down at the bottom, and then you can put your comment, and we'll definitely get to it. Before we do, though, I took a survey of Pitt fans on Twitter yesterday looking for a new bottle to get, and you guys recommended so many different things I just sort of had to go off the grid and get my own. This is Hidden Still. Never heard of them before. From Hershey. So I kept it in the Commonwealth, Okay, let's see how this goes. I feel like if we're going to do a live stream at 1 in the morning, we probably have something. So Pitt fans, to you, for your those of you who were there, those of you who watched, and most importantly, those of you who are here right now, Salud. Now, with that shot down, let me say, what were they doing at the end of the first half? What were they doing at the end of the first half? And it's funny after a game like this to dive into the specifics and the details. That's good. That's smooth. That's easy to drink. Maybe a little too easy. Better put the cap back on before we do too many of those. What was happening at the end of the first half? No, scratch that, because I know what was happening. What was the intention at the end of the first half? What were they even attempting to do at the end of the first half? They get the ball with 1 minute to play. Right? 1 minute to play. I'm just getting the looking up for the yard line. At the 25. 1 minute to play. They've got 2 timeouts, I think. 1 maybe. And they throw a screen pass. Okay, maybe you just want to get things going with a quick completion. They end up picking up 6 yards. Okay, just going to kind of get it rolling so you can try and get into field goal range and get yourself some points. Okay, but then they take their time coming back to the line of scrimmage. What are you trying to do? What is your objective in this situation? Because your screen pass led me to think, the fact that you're passing the ball led me to think that you're going to attempt to push the ball and push into scoring range and maybe have a shot at a makeable field goal, not something ridiculous like 58 yards or something crazy like that. I thought that was your intention, but then you're just taking your time. No real hurry, no urgency. Oh, okay. So you must be trying to run the clock and just get out of there. And the fans don't like it, but that's fine. You know what? You want to get done. You want to get out of there. You don't want to have any mistakes. You're just going to try and run that clock down. If Carolina calls a timeout, it's all right. You're at 2nd and 4. That's a good kind of gain. Just going to hand it off 2 times and try and get those other 4 yards. You're just going to run out the clock. You're going to go to halftime and try and regroup and all that. Okay, I get it. And then they throw another screen pass. What in God's name are you throwing a screen pass for in 2nd and 4 with the clock ticking in that situation? You might as well just hand it off if you're going to try and run the clock. A screen pass is not going to get you the yardage that you need to get into scoring range, particularly with all the time you just took off the clock. And a screen pass always carries with it the possibility of an incomplete pass, which stops the clock. So what are you trying to do in that situation? 2 screen passes, and then on 3rd down, now that the clock has stopped, I didn't note the time. I didn't note the time that the clock stopped, but on 3rd down, you have Phil Jurkovec run the ball. What? Why? What? I don't understand. And I listened to Pat Narduzzi's post-game press conference. He only talked for like 8 minutes, so he didn't get into every detail. So he wasn't asked about it, but what are you trying to do? Maybe I'm an idiot. Not maybe. I am an idiot. There's a lot of things I don't understand in this world. I could go down a long list. I could spend the next 45 minutes talking about things I don't get. But instead, I'm going to just talk about this one thing that happened just a few hours ago that I don't understand. What are you trying to do? What is your goal here? You want to run the clock? Run the clock. You want to get into scoring range? Get into scoring range. You didn't do either one of them. At least not intentionally. Now, Phil Jurkovec gets destroyed, and Mac Brown, just to show you that all coaches are ridiculous about penalties, Mac Brown had some snide remarks about that call. Well, I guess they don't call they call targeting different than they called it a year ago. What, Mac? Your guy took the dirtiest shot of any player in this game. I mean, the Carolina media is there. They're not going to call him out on that. Why would they? It's after a win. The team's 4-0. It's Mac Brown. It's Carolina. We're all good old boys down here. But it was the dirtiest hit of the entire game. How are you questioning that? And then you lose Phil Jurkovec for the second half because he gets hurt in that game. Apparently not a concussion, according to Pat Narduzzi. He said he's not in the protocol. So you lose Phil Jurkovec. Vare throws like a 15-yard pass, and you set up for a 58-yard field goal, which Ben Sauls can make a 58-yard field goal. They had an operation problem. The snap was bobbled, and so the hold was off. And that messed up the whole thing. He could make a 58-yard field goal. He doesn't need to make a 58-yard field goal if you actually try to drive into field goal range. Now they got they got a bonus of 15 yards on the hit on Djokovic. Maybe they never make that extra 15 yards anyway, and it's a moot point. But what are you trying to do? Decide. Are we going for it, or are we going to lay down? And if you want to lay down, that's fine. I mean, we could disagree about whether you should or shouldn't be aggressive in that situation. It's fine. I know all the fans want him to go for it. I know I'm sure Narduzzi wanted to just lay down. I don't care one way or the other. I mean, we can have a debate about that. But, like, we don't even know what we're arguing against here because we don't know what they were trying to do. And that's incredibly frustrating to watch when you're looking at something and you're like, what was your best case outcome here? Rodney Hammond busts a 75-yard gain on a screen pass? Is that what you're hoping for? Were you thinking the second screen pass was going to get a first down, was going to get you 4 yards to get a first down to stop the clock so you could then really set up your attack? Okay. Oh, I don't like it, but okay, because now the clock does stop after a first down in the final 2 minutes of a half, so okay. But why did you take so long getting back to the line of scrimmage? Why did you take so long? Why did you waste time as if you were just trying to run that clock out? See, I'm getting caught up in like the details of a small thing, but I see the picture on the screen of Christian Veilleux, and there's a really big question there, isn't there? There's a really big question that may have you feeling even worse about the remaining 8 games than you did, just based on the performance tonight, the whole team tonight. Because now you've seen Christian Veilleux in a game. Christian Veilleux goes out and let me bring up his stat line here. Just 8 of 19 for 88 yards and 2 interceptions. He basically, in the second half, had Phil Djokovic's stat line from the West Virginia game. Pretty much. Djokovic was 8 of 20 with 3 picks, right? Veilleux goes 8 of 19 for 2 picks. If he throws another pass like his last interception, then he could have been 8 of 20 for 3 picks too. And now, Pitt fans, since it's a lot of fun and you might want to do another shot after this one, now you have to ask yourself, is he a better option than Phil Djokovic? We all spent the last week saying you've got to try it, you've got to find out, you've got to look at something else. Now you did. What's your conclusion on that? What's your conclusion on Christian Veilleux's performance? Because I like the pass he had before the last interception, or who knows when it was. It was late, obviously, because he played the second half, where Konate Munfield ran a really nice route. I don't know if he broke off his route as Veilleux scrambled out to his right, or if it was the route that just lost the defender and Veilleux put a nice pass to him, and it was a really good play, really good throw. The first pass he threw of the game to Dejon Reynolds, 15-yard after Djokovic got hit, or got hurt and got knocked out of the game, was pretty low. Didn't exactly hit him in stride or anything like that. Obviously, the interception was bad. First interception was an arm punt, kind of like what Djokovic threw against Cincinnati, except against Cincinnati, Konate Munfield came back and caught the ball for a 30-yard gain. Against North Carolina, Christian Veilleux was not so lucky with his arm punt. Under pressure, heaves it up, gets picked off at the 1. And then Pitt has, the typical, the standard nonsense. They end up with a ton of penalties in this game, taunting on Donovan McMillan. And, it's Carolina, so you know that there are going to be calls that go against you, and there are going to be calls that should go against Carolina but don't get called. The illegal substitution call was crap. Missing the offensive pass interference on May's left-handed touchdown pass was crap. May, I think, taunting Pitt's defensive players, leaning over them after that touchdown pass was crap. Not getting called. I mean, there was trash calls all over the place. Narduzzi, of course, talked about it. Pat Narduzzi had plenty to say about the penalties after the game. When yes, that was a factor. No, you should not be focusing on it right now. You should be focusing on how you're going to get your team better, not necessarily in the post-game press conference, but I mean, you should be, I feel like there are more pressing issues than the penalties. They were bad. It was something to discuss, but hardly near the top of my list. All right, I want to get into the comments and questions, get into the super chats here because there's a lot of people who are rolling in with it. Michael B got it started right off the bat, as he often does. Says, Chris, let's keep it real. This season is lost. 4 wins seems to be the ceiling, while it wouldn't shock me if Pitt finishes with 2 or 3. Will Narduzzi be on the hot seat if they finish with 3 wins? He should. I'm sad. I'm so sad, he says. Will Pat Narduzzi be on the hot seat if they finish with 3 wins? I mean, sure. Yeah, to some extent. I mean, you're not going to get a contract extension after 3 wins, you know? Is the team doomed to 4 wins? Is 4 wins the ceiling? I don't know about that. There's a lot of football to be played, a lot of ways it can go. It's pretty gloomy right now. Not going to deny that. They haven't been 1-3 to start a season since 2017, and that year they ended up with 5 wins, and one of them was a pretty considerable upset, although one of the losses was a pretty bad loss in North Carolina, among others, Syracuse, and a few others. I think there's a way out of the path they're going down. I think not facing number 1 overall draft pick quarterbacks is helpful. I think the offense was better today than it was against West Virginia and even Cincinnati. Again, even though they scored 3 touchdowns against Cincinnati, I think the offense was better today than it was in that game. So maybe there's some improvement there. Certainly, I was just going to say, certainly getting Rodney Hammond more involved was a step in the right direction, but then he gets hurt and he's out of the game. I think Sebo Flemister can be good. I think Rodney Hammond is their best back, but I think Sebo Flemister can be good. You might be able to rely on him. I was glad to see, or I thought it was a step in the right direction to really focus on Hammond and Flemister. I don't think Daniel Carter had a single snap as the primary tailback. He had the touchdown run as a fullback, and that might have been his only offensive snap. We'll check. We'll look at the tape, or I'll check the snap counts on Pro Football Focus. But I think that was his only offensive snap, was when he ran in the touchdown from the fullback position. So I thought that was a step in the right direction. I think that was a good thing to do. But if Hammond is out for a while, you're gonna have some trouble. If you don't get some of these guys back on the offensive line, and I'm not sure when they're going to get some of these guys back on the offensive line, then you're going to be in some trouble. It's going to be tough. But the competition should lighten up a little bit here. Not a ton. And when you're playing like Pitt is right now, you can't take anybody for granted. You can't take Virginia Tech for granted. You can't take Boston College or Wake Forest for granted. Even though you should have a pretty good chance in those games, or a solid chance in those games. I understand feeling like the season is lost. I don't think that's an unreasonable reaction to a 1-3 start in a game like tonight. I don't think at the end of the year when we look back that we'll be like, in terms of games that got away, there was the Carolina game. I mean, the Carolina game, again, went about like you would expect it to go. Cincinnati game got away. West Virginia game got away. Carolina, not so much. Now, if they were sitting here at 3-1, that would obviously be a lot better than where they are currently, but it's what it is. John Waffle H2P is a super chatter. He says, I seriously think Narduzzi is holding this program back. We need a new culture. I'll say this. If we're going to take this game and get into big picture stuff like the culture and whether Narduzzi's holding the program back, I think there's a reality at Pitt where you are going to have dips. It's going to be cyclical. I've talked a lot about establishing a floor of 8 wins and that you'd never really dip below that except in those extreme years. But I think those extreme years do happen. I think, even for something like defense, where the defense has been really good, I think you're still going to hit those years where there's a dip. And you might say to me, well, this school or that school, they don't ever seem to have a dip. They don't ever seem to really deal with that. And I understand, but I don't think Pitt recruits at, and probably will never really recruit at the level that they'll never have a dip. I think you're just going to hit those years where the talent and or the experience, kind of ebbs and flows, and you hit one of those low points in the cycle, and you end up with a really tough year. I still think there are talented players on this defense. I think this defense can be better than they were tonight. I think this is what happens against North Carolina. This is what happens against good offenses. This is what happens against a really good quarterback. Drake May is the best quarterback they will face all season. And, certainly I don't think they're going to face another quarterback on his level over the next 8 games. He's better than Sam Hartman. Sam Hartman probably has a better offensive line than Drake May, and that's going to make life far more difficult, even, more difficult than it was the last time they faced Sam Hartman. But this is the best quarterback that they're going to face all year. They're not going to face another guy like Drake May who can make the throws that he can make, who has the scrambling ability that he has. I mean, some guys might be able to scramble equal to or better than Drake May, but they don't have the throwing ability that he's got. I think he's the best passer that they're going to face all season, and he's got scrambling ability that rivals anybody that's on their schedule. So they're not going to face another guy like this. And at the same time, as if the level of competition at the quarterback position has peaked on the season, I think the defense, so that's only going to kind of work its way down. I think the defense and some of the young defensive players they have are just going to keep improving and getting better. I mean, you think about the linebackers they rolled out there tonight. Your starting lineup had Kyle Lewis making his first career start. Braylon Lovelace got a lot of playing time. Nick Lappy was out there a lot. These are some young and or inexperienced guys. Kind of the same thing along the defensive line. I mean, Bam Brima and Deion Hayes are playing career-high snaps almost every week. Sam Okunlola is out there for significant snaps. Nikai Johnson's getting playing time out there. You look at the safeties. Those guys playing more snaps than they've ever played before in their careers. And I'm not making excuses, because all of those units on defense got beat and missed tackles, misread and missed their assignments, and all those guys. They made all those mistakes that, can make a bad quarterback look okay and can make a great quarterback look even better than he already is. But there are also a lot of correctable things. I don't think there's a huge talent deficiency on defense. Questionable about the defensive line. I think some guys need to really step up there. On the whole, though, I think it's still a pretty talented defense, but the signs of inexperience and youth are showing. And it's something we all talked about all offseason. I think everyone had accepted that there were going to be some growing pains with this defense. But it's one thing to accept it in May, and it's another thing to actually watch it happening in September. And it's far more unpleasant to watch it happening in September. And it's far more, it makes you far less willing to accept it. We can all sit in May and June and say, we accept that this will be a challenging, a challenging period of growth for the defense, particularly over the early part of the season. We can all sit back and say that in June and May and July and February and whatever else we talked about it. But when we actually get in the mix and you're watching it happen, you say, this is rough. These are missed tackles. These are open receivers. These are run lanes that are wide open because guys aren't fitting where they're supposed to and how they're supposed to. It's a lot different when you're in that situation, and it's a lot more difficult, I think, to accept it when you're actually in the games, and it's costing you games. And it's costing you games because they're not getting enough stops to keep the score in range for the offense to win, because the offense isn't good enough to score that many points. All right, let's see more super chatters. Biz says it's time to reevaluate Narduzzi, period. He was clearly being carried by Pickett. This is not acceptable. Where is Yarnell? Being carried by Pickett. Okay. If you want to tell me that Pitt doesn't win the ACC championship without a Heisman Trophy finalist quarterback, I will agree. If you also want to tell me that they should be able to win at that level without a high caliber, without a high caliber level of play from the quarterback position, I will disagree. I don't understand why, we point to Kenny Pickett being really good as a knock on Narduzzi. Yes, his most successful season was when he got the best play out of the quarterback position. I don't deny that. It kind of is, it's better than if they went, 7-5 with the best play at the quarterback. But one goes hand in hand with the other. The defense was very good that year. They won some games for them. The ACC championship game, the ACC championship game, the defense was pretty important in that one. Did they get to the ACC championship because of Kenny Pickett? Yes. Would they have gotten there with lesser quarterback play? Probably not. I don't understand how that gets brought up as like a burn. And people also bring up the COVID year. If not for the COVID year, Narduzzi never would have gotten it. Well, if you want to say that, Kenny Pickett never would have been able to come back if not for the COVID year, maybe not. Because there's probably a decent chance that he could have applied for a waiver and gotten a waiver to apply a redshirt to 2017 because they put in the new redshirt rule like a year later. I believe it was 2018. They said, okay, you can play in 4 games and still redshirt. Kenny Pickett played in Syracuse, NC State, Virginia Tech, Miami in 2017. So 1 year later, the new redshirt rules would have allowed him to redshirt, which would have meant he could be on the team in 2021. So COVID year, yes, that helped. And that made it easy because they didn't need to get a waiver, but they probably could have gotten a waiver. They probably could have. I think Damar Hamlin got a waiver to play in 2020, right? Damar Hamlin, who played in 3 games or 4 games in 2016, 2 years before they changed the redshirt rule. And I have to double check, but I think it was changed in 2018. Damar Hamlin got a waiver because he had been hurt and only played in a handful of games in 2016. So, COVID, yes, but Pickett probably would have been on the team in 2021 either way. So I don't know why we hold that against Narduzzi. His best season was when he had his best quarterback. Wow. Yeah. That's what happens. You don't usually win with crappy quarterback play. They just have to find a way to get good quarterback play again, which is a whole other conversation of do you go to the transfer portal? Do you try and rely on recruits? Can you get a high enough caliber of recruits that you can develop and build success with? Or do you need to go to the transfer portal? Transfer portal not looking so great for Pitt right now at quarterback. But one of Pitt's quarterbacks from the transfer portal threw for 350 yards today. And 2 touchdowns and 2 picks. But 350 yards. It's Keaton Slovis at BYU. He threw 2 second-half touchdowns to engineer a comeback last week. So maybe he's not as bad. Something to ponder. Let's scroll down, find some more super chatters here, see what you guys are talking about. We got a lot of comments in here, and we appreciate it. I want to get them in order here. Biz says Whipple put up a good offense, and Whipple is gone. He is. That's true. But. So, I've said this before about the Mark Whipple situation and the transition from Mark Whipple to Frank Cignetti, that I don't think Pat Narduzzi wanted to go to just an all-running offense. He didn't want to go to the wing T or the option offense or something like that. What he wanted was a little bit more balance than they had under Mark Whipple, which I think is understandable. Because Mark Whipple's offense didn't look all that great in 2019. It was arguably the worst offense of the Narduzzi era in 2019. 2020 was a little bit better, but Kenny Pickett got hurt and it was hard to evaluate. 2021, he had a quarterback who had been with him for 3 years, who understood the system. He had a first-round draft pick at wide receiver, let's not forget. Another draft pick at running back, who they kind of did forget. And it turned out that it was really good when you had a quarterback with experience like that and a really super talented wide receiver. It's funny how that works out. But I think Narduzzi looked at it like, okay, well, now that quarterback's leaving. I hope to still have that super talented wide receiver, but really we probably could do with a little more balance in the offense. I don't think it's a bad idea. I don't think it's a bad, plan to try to have some more balance in the offense. It's probably something you could be successful with. Probably could do a pretty good job with it. But, it's a question of whether he found the right guy to run that more balanced offense. I think that's a fair question. EV says, still think Christian Veer is the better option. He was put into a bad situation. Hopefully he gets the chance to be the guy for a full game. He throws a more accurate and better ball. I can't even say that. I can't say he throws a more accurate or better ball. I just saw him like throwing bombs straight down the middle of the field. I don't know if it was more accurate and better or not. Sure, I'd like to see him for a full game, but there's some questionable stuff in this game. But again, he's thrown in there, not preparing for the week as the starter. It'll probably depend on Phil Drakovic's injury status and situation. And if he's going to be out for an extended period of time, then we're going to see Christian Veer. And then we'll all be talking about how Nate Yarnell should be getting a chance, right? Biz says, we're supposed to believe in a system that wouldn't roll out a recruited quarterback, but will roll out 2 transfers. Are you saying about like going with Dracovic and Yarnell, or Dracovic and Veer over Nate Yarnell? I think they go with those guys because that's who they think gives them the best chance to win. They could be right, they could be wrong, but that's who they go with. I do think that the decision on the quarterback, and I talked about this through the week, and we'll keep talking about this week, I think it is Frank Cignetti's call. I think Frank Cignetti makes the decision on what quarterback is going to go out there to start the game, and if a change needs to be made, which quarterback is going to take over when the change is made. And so that is going to be one of the things that I think at the end of the season, Panarduzzi's going to sit down and look at and decide, did Frank Cignetti make the right call with these guys, with these quarterbacks? Because Phil Dracovic was better today. I don't know if I would go so far as to say he was good, and I don't mean to bag on Phil. I don't mean to nitpick and stuff like that. But was he good? He was better. I think he was better. I think he took the easy passes. Panarduzzi said after the game, there's no easy passes and stuff like that. But I think it was a better game plan, and I think he executed it better. But he certainly had some runs working until they weren't. But I think if he's healthy, I think they'll go back to him. It's just a question of whether or not he's going to be healthy. Let's see. John Waffle H2P says, the data shows that Narduzzi refuses to recruit Eastern PA and Maryland. We need a businessman. Pretty sure a guy from Eastern PA scored a touchdown today. And Maryland, I guess Jordan Addison was from D.C., Rodney Hammond's from Virginia. He's not even close to Maryland. Jordan Addison was from D.C., I'm trying to think. I feel like there's some other guys who are like from the Maryland area or DC area. I don't think he refuses to recruit it. He just hasn't been that successful. Oh, Gavin Bartholomew's from Eastern PA too. Javon McIntyre is from Philly. He started at safety today. Who else? Kyle Lewis is from Jersey. Shane Simon, I think, is from Jersey too. But as far as Eastern PA and Maryland, he's not refusing to do it. You can see the numbers are there. You can see the offers. You can see the visits, where they go out to see guys and who they're trying to recruit and even guys they have on the roster. They're not ignoring those areas. They just haven't been that successful recruiting them. I don't think there's anything ignoring going on. Stephen Richmond says, glad the play calls were finally aligned with Phil's skill level. Thought we killed ourselves with penalties in key situations. Hate losing, but I finally saw some upside today. That's not bad. That's not a bad take, Stephen. How about Stephen coming through with a little bit of positivity to, because I don't think they're going to win that game without the penalties. If they don't commit any of those penalties, I don't think, it's, they could have won. I'm not going to sit here and say, wow, they could have done this or they could have done that. They blew it with a few bad penalties. Ultimately, I don't think they were ever going to stop Drake May enough to give their offense a real chance to win. I just don't think that was going to happen. And so this game was sort of I don't want to say a lost cause, but a little bit. But yeah, I mean, I think particularly early in the game when it was still close, I think Pitt was able to run its offense. The offense that they were running looked pretty good. Rodney Hammond and the extended drives, Kanate Mumfield. I think Phil Dracovic completed 3 passes. His first 3 completions to Kanate Mumfield all converted third downs. So the first 3 third downs that Pitt converted were all Dracovic to Mumfield, which, look, right now, I think Kanate Mumfield is one of a select handful of guys that you need to be emphasizing getting the ball to. It's got to be him. It's got to be Rodney Hammond. It's got to be Gavin Bartholomew. And I had this thought, and I'll give a shout out to either Hiles or Carter. I forget who it was. It was either Noah Hiles or Chris Carter from the Post-Gazette. After Kenny Johnson had the touchdown, the kick return touchdown, and after they gave him a jet sweep where he got like 9 yards, they were like, boy, imagine if they actually just threw him the ball. Yeah, how about that? Maybe you should try to throw this guy the ball. He looks like he might be a playmaker. But here's the thing. Okay. Kenny Johnson is a true freshman. All right. And yeah, true freshmen make plays all over the place. True freshmen can acclimate, and the truly elite can play right off the bat and be great. Fine. We're seeing him get a larger and larger role week after week. He moved on to the kick return team. He's seeing more offensive snaps. I thought he played a decent amount tonight. I'll look and see what the snap counts are and how it compares to the West Virginia game. But I think you're seeing him take on a larger and larger role. And I think he's going to, I don't think it'll be long before he's getting games where he has 6 or 7 passing targets in the game, where they're trying to get the ball to him, where they're even throwing it to him in addition to handing it off on jet sweeps. Probably don't want to do any more of those read option plays. It looked like a read option with Christian Bear and Kenny Johnson. And Johnson thought he was getting the ball, and Bear thought he was pulling the ball, and the ball went bloop. Probably don't want to do that, particularly after you just blocked a punt that you recovered, which, shout out to Rasheem Biles, 2 blocked punts in 2 weeks. Rasheem Biles blocked a punt against North Carolina. Braylon Lovelace recovered it, and then, of course, Kenny Johnson had the kick return for a touchdown. It was a good week for freshmen on special teams at Pitt. But Kenny Johnson is working his way into that group of guys that, if it's me, I'm trying to get the ball to. Right? 9, Kanate Mumfield, number 9, can do good things for you. When you get the ball to him, he can do good things. He hasn't done a lot yards after the catch, but he's been a reliable receiver. He runs good routes, converted third downs today. He's a guy you want to get the ball to. Rodney Hammond, if he's healthy, if he's out there, is your best running back. He's a guy you want to get the ball to. Gavin Bartholomew, when you throw him the ball, good things happen. They do. The long pass, the 30-yard pass, not a great throw. Could have been a touchdown. Could have been 2 touchdowns. There was Bub Means running like a post that you really had. I remember they come out. I remember this play. I forget if it was the first drive or the second drive. And they come out. They have 3 tight ends and Bub Means and Rodney Hammond. I'm like, well, this is weird. I'm like, are they going to try and run play action and hit one of these guys? And they do. Play action. I'm like, oh, there's the play action. I look and I see Bub Means running that post, and he's got a receiver. The receiver's behind him. So I mean, this is gonna be a crazy idea, and you wouldn't actually imagine this could happen in a game. I don't think it's allowed to happen in a game. But if you throw it to him, you hit him in stride, and you lead him, the defender's never going to be able to make a play on the ball. You've got an easy touchdown, assuming you can make that kind of throw. And so I'm like, whoa, there's the play. And I look back to Phil Dracovic, and he's winding up, but he's looking in a completely opposite direction. I'm like, what are you looking at? You got that guy right there. You got him. And then I see, he's throwing it to Gavin Bartholomew. I'm like, actually, wait. He's got a chance to make a play too. But the throw was so ridiculous that he didn't have a chance. It could have been a touchdown. If you make a good throw to Gavin Bartholomew in that situation, it could have been a touchdown. Either way, I mean, they end up getting the touchdown ultimately, no matter what. But good things happen when you get the ball to Gavin Bartholomew. Good things happen when you get the ball to Kanate Mumfield. Good things happen when you get the ball to Rodney Hammond. I'm starting to think good things happen when you get the ball to Kenny Johnson. These are the guys who need to get the ball. These are the guys who need to get the touches. These are the guys you need to emphasize in your offense. In today's game, Rodney Hammond carried the ball 14 times and had 3 receptions. 17 touches is not enough for Rodney Hammond. Now he got hurt. Oh, he averaged almost 6 yards per carry, by the way. 83 yards and a touchdown on 14 carries. You think that's the kind of guy you might need to get the ball to? Now, I understand you're down 28-17 at halftime, so you can't get him the ball, you can't run and all that stuff. But like, that's a guy you need to emphasize. And it's amazing to me every time we sit back, and I feel like we've done this a lot this season. It's amazing when you can sit back watching an offense on a Pat Narduzzi team coordinated by Frank Cignetti and say they didn't run it enough. And Pitt's running backs today had 16 rushing attempts, 14 for Hammond, 1 for Sebo, 1 for Daniel Carter. 16 rushing attempts for the running backs on a Pat Narduzzi team with the offense coordinated by Frank Cignetti. I don't even know. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. Your passing game is not the strength. Your running game is the strength. Your running game will be the strength, and you've got talented backs who can run it. And they give them the ball 16 times. I don't know what to say. Like, your quarterbacks are not going to win you games. Not right now. Your quarterbacks are not going to win you games. Not in any kind of heroic fashion. They're going to win you games by dumping the ball off, by taking checkdowns, by hitting quick passes, little slants, and things like that. Get the ball to 86, get the ball to 9, hand the ball to 6, maybe occasionally throw it to 6. And then as the season progresses, get number 2 involved there as well. It's not hard. It's not complicated. It's particularly when you're trying to run this offense, it's really not complicated. I mean, you might overcomplicate it, but you've got some guys who can make plays for you. You've got some guys who can actually help you move the ball. You're not going to score like Drake May did today. You're not going to be in a position where you put, to use Mac Brown's phrase, handcuffs on the offense in the second half. Knowing full well you could take those handcuffs off and score at any point whenever you need to. You're not going to be in a game like that, but you have enough pieces that you should be able to reliably score 3 or 4 touchdowns in a game. And this offense has not shown that they can reliably score 3 or 4 touchdowns in a game. They scored 3 against Cincinnati and 2 tonight. So they've scored 5 touchdowns in 3 games against FBS opponents. You have a quarterback problem. There's no question about it. But you've got other ways you can move the ball without relying on your quarterback to be the hero. It's not 2021. Kenny Pickett's not walking through that door. And you don't have a quarterback who can put the team on his shoulders like Kenny Pickett did. Forget all the offseason talk about leadership and he's such a leader and this and that. Forget it. Who can make plays, right? Who can make plays? Who can move the ball down the field? Who can drive the offense down the field? And you're not going to get those heroics out of these quarterbacks. It's fine. You don't necessarily need it. You can win games even without those heroics. But you need to emphasize your playmakers. You need to give Rodney Hammond the ball more than 14 times or 15 times. 14 carries where he averages almost 6 yards per carry means that he got the ball. He didn't get the ball enough. Let's check back in. Biz says, I love your podcast. I listen every day. Hey, Biz, shout out to you, man. Brian Wintermeyer says, you keep talking about the skill players. The O-line sucks and had injuries. What do you want to do? What do you want the offense to do with that mess? Look, that's fair. That's a fair question. The O-line is in shambles. They had their fourth different starting offensive line, their fourth different starting five in 4 games. They've used a different offensive line combination in each game, and not necessarily by choice. I think in the second game, they went by choice. They pulled Jason Collier out of the starting lineup and put B.J. Williams in. But then Williams got hurt, so Collier went back in, and then Matt Gonsalves and Jake Cradle got hurt, so those guys came out, and you got the lineup you had today, which was Ryan Barrett, or Branson Taylor at left tackle, Blake Sabovic at left guard, Terrence Moore making his first career start at center, Collier at right guard, and Ryan Barrett right tackle. His first career start as well. That's a makeshift offensive line. And Rodney Hammond still averaged almost 6 yards per carry. What did they even end up with? Carolina had 2 sacks. 2 sacks. Rodney Hammond averaged almost 6 yards per carry. The entire Pitt team, including the sacks and the quarterback runs and all that stuff, and Daniel Carter having 1 carry for 1 yard, Pitt as a whole averaged 4.1 yards per rushing attempt. And that includes the sacks, the lost yardage. That includes Christian Vera going 3 carries for -9 yards and Phil Jacoby going 5 for 5. Phil Jacoby got a 20-yard run, and his final stat line was 5 rushing attempts for 5 yards. And including all that, they still averaged more than 4 yards per carry. I don't think the offensive line was the problem tonight. They had breakdowns. There's no question about it. They had breakdowns. But they also opened up a lot of holes in the running game and gave Phil Dracovic some time to make some passes. They weren't perfect. Borderline good. I don't even know if you would say they were good. But they weren't. They were okay. You know what I mean? They were passable. They were serviceable. And when your running back, again, averages 5.9 yards per carry, your offensive line wasn't complete crap. You know, which is remarkable given the situation and given the circumstances and the injuries that those guys had. So I give a lot of credit to those guys. I thought, you know, there was some nice interior blocking. I thought some big holes opened up in the middle. Yeah, I give the O-line some credit for a pretty tough situation. I thought they were okay. Biz says the 412 Collective or whatever needs to say something about what is happening. Well, they're not going to say anything about anything. Alliance 412. What they are going to do is going to try and keep generating support from the fans to help in the NIL efforts, which ideally will lead to getting better players. Like that's what it's all about. And like this is where fans are going to run into a really difficult situation where they're going to have a crisis of confidence, what do you call it? A crisis of conscience or something like that. Because you don't like what's going on. You don't like how the team is playing. You don't like the quarterback play. You don't like the product on the field. Understandably, they're 1-3. Worst record in 6 years. Worst start to a season in 6 years. So you don't like that. And usually, if the team is letting you down and making you mad, you're not going to be inclined to give more money, right? But donating to the Alliance, and I mean, I'm not cutting a promo for Alliance 412 here, but ultimately, if it all happens the way it's supposed to happen, will lead to Pitt getting better players and the on-field product improving. One could make a case that if you are really frustrated with the product in the field, you need to donate even more money so they can get better. You know what I'm saying? I'm not advocating one thing or another. I'm not advertising for anybody. If Alliance 412 wants to advertise on the Panther-Lair.com podcast, we are more than happy to discuss advertising opportunities with basically any organization. We will consider it for advertising. So if Alliance 412 wants to do that, give me a call. They know where I am. I'm not hard to find, as a certain college football coach would say. But, you know, that's what it ultimately comes down to. I mean, Alliance 412 is out there trying to help get the best Pitt football team possible. And they do that with the support of Pitt fans. And so there's a case to be made that if you're really frustrated by the whole thing and how the team looks, you got to get the talent better. You got to get better talent, I should say. All right, we got about 5 minutes left. Let me see if there's any other super chatters. There is. Oh, yeah. Focus Pooler 1 is a super chatter. I don't know if you have a comment in there. Try and throw it out there. Oh, Michael B says, I missed his second super chat too. I'm going to scroll through and try and find that. Focus Pooler 1. Listen, if you got a comment, I can't find it just scrolling through. So repost it, and I will try to get to it if I can. Michael B also, here it is, says, what's up with the recruiting, Chris? Come on, they didn't build upon their ACC win, and most of these kids no top 20 team would want. O-line really stinks. Recruiting. I don't think it bumped the way I thought it was going to. I think they have recruited well over the last couple of years. I think they've got some good players, and they've been able to hold on to them. They haven't lost them to the transfer portal. I think they've gotten some good players in the last few recruiting classes. We're just not seeing it translate onto the field just yet. I think there's really good players in this current recruiting class, this 2024 recruiting class. They missed out on some of the big names locally, just like they did last year. And that's going to be an ongoing struggle that they're always going to deal with and always going to have to fight against and find a way to win locally. And it's not easy to do because there are a lot of teams with a lot of pull in Western Pennsylvania. You know, Penn State carries a lot of weight for high school kids in Pennsylvania, in Western Pennsylvania, you know, kids who went up to Penn State today to the whiteout game and all that stuff. I mean, they got a pretty good experience. And so that's always going to be a challenge, but I mean, I think they've recruited well. I think they've continued over the years to recruit better and better. I don't think their best recruiting is behind them. I think if you look at it year to year, I think it's, even if it's only marginal improvements, I think there have been improvements year to year. I'll say this, all right? I think with the defense in particular, like I still have a lot of faith in these defensive players. You know, like Kyle Lewis is out there making his first start tonight as a redshirt freshman. Really, you know, and he's one of these guys who every week this season he's playing, you know, setting a new career high in snaps played. And we want these guys to step on the field and just be ready and, you know, ready to go and just be awesome right off the bat. But it's tougher than that. You know, it's not that easy to just step in. And so Kyle Lewis, first career start tonight, played a career high in snaps. I don't even need to see the numbers. I know he played a career high in snaps because he was out there a ton. You know, Braylon Lovelace is out there playing a lot as a true freshman and showed it. You know, he had a missed tackle tonight where I thought, well, they would have, you know, you could have gotten the guy down with that kind of tackle at Leechburg, but you're not at Leechburg anymore. And that's no disrespect to Leechburg or single A football, but this is college football. This is the ACC. And it's going to take a little bit of time to get acclimated to that. And again, I'm not, this is not like changing my tune. I've said this all summer and all spring that, look, this defense might take some time to get going. There might be some growing pains. There might be some challenges along the way. We're witnessing it. All right, we're witnessing it. And we're witnessing those moments where it clicks, where Samuel Okunlola gets a sack down near the goal line and all that kind of stuff. But we're seeing also some of the growing pains. And it's tough. You know, it's tough to watch it, and you think, oh, these guys are never going to be good. But I think we've seen over the years, and I think there is evidence of this over the last 8 years, where guys maybe don't look so hot when they first get out there. But by the end of the season or by, you know, the next year or whatever, they've settled in and they've got their job and they know what they're doing and they're really good at it. Brandon Hill is a great example. Brandon Hill whiffed on a tackle at Florida State in his first career start after Paris Ford left the team. He whiffed on a tackle, ended up giving up a long run to the quarterback. Later in that game, I think he had a scoop and score or a pick six or something like that, and obviously became a really good player at Pitt. I think you look at a lot of guys who have had similar starts to their career, similar starts to the, you know, their, when they really were experiencing a lot of playing time for the first time, and they didn't do so hot. They struggled, but they got into it. And so I think by the end of the season, or even by a couple weeks from now, or, you know, mid-October, late October, like, It's not going to be new for Javon McIntyre anymore. It's not going to be new for Donovan McMillan, for Kyle Lewis, for Braylon Lovelace. It's not going to be new for these guys anymore. And I think you can expect to see increasing levels of play, improvements along the way as the season goes on. And again, we talked about this in the offseason. It's one thing to talk about it and say, yeah, I know that's going to happen. And then once you're actually experiencing it, you're like, oh, this sucks. This isn't any fun. I know watching the growing process is not fun. It's only fun when they make positive improvements, not when they show their youth and inexperience. That's not fun at all. All right, let's see if any other super chatters came in here at the end before we go. Yeah, Focus Puller 1. I apologize if you had another comment in there. And I missed it. Brian Wintermeyer as well. Yeah, I got Brian, your comment. Focus Puller 1, if you had anything. Oh, Focus Puller, here, I found you. How is it the Pitt can put so many great players in the NFL while the teams are pretty much mediocre? Well, I mean, that's a big question. Focus Puller 1, you got Aaron Donald in the NFL, but Pitt was perennially 6-6 when he was here. Larry Fitzgerald, that team had its issues with running the ball and stopping the run. Who else? Jordan Addison. He's pretty good in the NFL, and he won an ACC championship. No, but I mean, they've had this record of Pitt of draft picks over the last 3 years. Most in the ACC and all that stuff. Well, yeah, and they won the ACC with those guys. So I wouldn't, I think there is a bit of a correlation there where they had a lot of draft picks and they end up winning a bunch of games. They're just in a dip in the cycle where, they're replacing a lot of starters on defense and kind of starting over there. And you're seeing some of the bumps, some of the hiccups, and some of the bumps in the road along the way. All right. I don't know if anybody else has anything else to say. I don't know if I have anything else to say. I mean, this is just... It's not tonight's game was not a surprise. It's probably what we thought was going to happen. The season's not over, but clearly this is going to be that kind of season. It's going to be a rough one. And there's going to be more rough games along the way. You just want to see them take care of business in Virginia Tech, Boston College, Wake Forest. And I'm including Wake Forest in there because they've been dipping pretty much weekly. Certainly over the last couple weeks, it's pretty clear there's some warts there. So those three, you want to see them take care of business against those three, and then see who else they can knock off along the way. Syracuse, Duke, Louisville. We don't even need to include Florida State and Notre Dame in that conversation, but see what happens against those three. Maybe you're getting consistent play out of the quarterback by then. Maybe you're getting better play out of the defense by then. Let's say that. Let's just leave it on that. I don't know. Pitt loses 41-24. An outcome we expected. And we're not really sure what to say about it. But it happened. It happened. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in tonight. I know it's really late. I know I'm really tired. I'm sure you're really tired. I know we all want to go to bed. So I appreciate everybody who came and hung out tonight for an hour or so on the on the live stream. It's been a lot of fun. We'll, of course, have our morning pit every day this week, so make sure you like this video and subscribe to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. I'm going to go write some stuff, post some more videos and photos and articles and things like that. Check out Panther-Lair.com for all the latest Pitt sports news and coverage and message boards where people are very civil and pleasant right now on the message boards at Panther-Lair.com, Panther-Lair.com. All right, thanks a lot again. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. Have a good one, and we will... we'll be back Monday morning with another morning pit. So tune in then, right here, youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com.